Moorabool, grant us wisdom that we may care for the Shire as true stewards of your creation. May we be aware of the great responsibilities placed upon us. Help us bless our customary dealings. May our work prosper for the good of all. Amen.
Amen.
I would just like to pay acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of any other communities who may be here today. Just as a matter of housekeeping, councillors, just to note that this meeting is recorded in accordance with Council's governance rules, and the meeting will be also live streamed. I just also note that those present, Councillor Ward is coming over Zoom, so Councillor was up on the screen there, so thank you, Rod. And also to note that Councillor Tatchell's an apology, so I'll just move that somebody move that the apology be received, please.
And Councillor Berry.
Oh, Councillor Berry, I thought it was just the afternoon session. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. So, thank you for the councillor.
Got a text message just come through from Councillor. Oh, an apology as well.
Yes, yeah, I got that. Thank you.
Oh, you got that?
Yeah, so Councillors Tatchell and Councillor Berry are an apology. Just noted. Confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting of Wednesday the 3rd of March. Somebody please.
I'm happy to move.
Dudzik, a second of that please. Councillor Minari, all those in favour, it's carried. Thank you. Council, it's just item 7, the disclosure of conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest on the agenda tonight that council wish to disclose? Okay, thank you. Item 8, public question time. We have 3 questions that have been circulated from Mrs. Leanne Traynor and 2 from Mr. John Kowalski. So, Mr. CEO, do you wish to proceed with those?
Yes, 3, that's correct.
Thank you.
The first question is from Leanne Trianon, and the question is in regards to PA 20140102 and the easement at number 6 Graham Street, Backers Marsh, in the best interest of town, can council rethink their previous decision and proclaim the easement at number 6 Graham Street, Backers Marsh as a public highway which has been used?
Sorry, just before we do, I just wish to note, I didn't realise that I have a conflict in that particular matter raised by Mrs. Traynor. So if that been the case, Councillor Ward, would you sort of, I'll just abstain myself while that question has been resolved, please.
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Step in out of there.
Mr. CEO, I'll invite you to continue the question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It has been used as a public highway for the past 40 years. This is an historic item, and with the recently elected councillors, they've not received the background information in relation to this. So as the CEO, I will be preparing a briefing note for the councillors to fully consider this matter, and a response will be provided to Leanne following this briefing.
Fellow councillors, you're in favour of that recommendation from the CEO?
I had a question. If I can. It was my understanding that this matter had been resolved. By this question, it doesn't appear to be the case, because I know she came back a number of times, but I thought it had actually been worked out.
True, you, Deputy Mayor. From council's position, there are some items that are outstanding. So council expressed a view as to what was the best course of action to resolve this matter. Leanne has now come back on the basis of advice that she has received, saying that the path that council has expressed a desire for her to follow is actually quite difficult. And so you're correct, it is over a year ago that this was before council.
And given the complexities of the matter, as per the CEO's recommendation, and that Councillor Minari, myself and Councillor Berry aren't aware of the history, I'm more than comfortable in having a briefing paper prepared so we can defer this to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, the next question is the question of Mr John Kowalski of the Land. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I'll call on Sally Jones, the General Manager of Community Strengthening, to answer this question.
Okay, thank you, Ms Jones.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The question received is with reference to Council's Land Library major priority project. Can Council please provide an update on progress with the draft Land Library infrastructure review, previously the Land Library feasibility report that was to be presented to Council in March 2021, and advise when this document will be available for public comment? That question is from Mr John Kowalski. And the response to that is the draft for Land Library infrastructure review was presented to the executive team for feedback this week. The report will be refined to reflect the feedback received and presented to councillors via a briefing session by the end of the financial year.
Thank you, Ms Jones. That response will be circulated to Mr Kowalski. Thank you, Ms Jones. The second question is also from Mr John Kowalski, relates to 22 Fiskin Street.
Robbie, answer this one? Through you, Mr Mayor. So Rob, the General Manager, will
please. Thank you.
So the question is with reference to the development of 22 Fiskin Street for land. Can Council please provide an update on the progress with the developer constructing the missing pram crossing that Council advised would be completed in February 2021, and whether the statement of compliance with the development has been issued. So due to the gradient of between the existing footpath and the curb, a pram crossing cannot be completed to comply with disability standards without reconfiguring the intersection. Coincidentally, Council has also a capital project in this vicinity which will alter the curb to enable a compliant pram crossing to be constructed. This work is programmed to be undertaken in the next 3 to 4 months. It is proposed to construct the pram crossing at the same time with a contribution from the developer. And statement of compliance has not been issued until that work will have been completed.
Thank you, Mr Phillips. So again, that response, Mr CEO, will be sent back to Mr Kowalski.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. That ends public question time. Next item of business is item 11.1. We have a speaker to that. I'm assuming they're coming in online. I don't see anyone in the gallery.
Yeah, no, it's online.
Okay. Mr Sean Mulcahy. Mr Mulcahy, you're on mute. Can you hear us, Mr Mulcahy?
Lucky Sean the Moorabool.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
you can now, yes.
Okay, thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to address you. And I'm sorry, I've just come from another meeting, so I'm just a bit cross-purpose. But I would like to take this opportunity to address you through the Mayor on my behalf, both as a member of the nearby local community in Ballarat, but also as a policy advisor at the Victorian Pride Lobby on the supporting LGBTIQA+ inclusion in Moorabool Shire. In our view, in the lobby, the rainbow flag should be flown annually at the council offices in Balan and in Darley on the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia, which is on the 17th of May. We know from Victorian government research that about 1 in 25 people in Moorabool are part of the LGBTIQA+ community, which includes lesbian women, gay men, bisexual people, trans, intersex, queer and asexual people. And a simple gesture like flying the rainbow flag would say that Moorabool Council supports equality and inclusivity for its residents that are LGBTIQA+ and will proudly stand by them. It would also complement the community event, a Rainbow over Moorabool, which is organised by the local community group Moorabool Rainbow Allies, which is about encouraging locals to fly a rainbow flag from their home or business during the Idaho period. We know again from research that younger LGBTIQA+ people face greater risk of physical and mental health hazards than the general community. And the factors that affect their mental and physical well-being include things like discrimination, harassment and physical harm, but also a lack of family and social connections, which is particularly true in rural and regional communities like Moorabool. And this all culminates in experiences of minority stress, which is a unique set of that are experienced by the system. Why symbols of pride like the rainbow flag are particularly important to affirm council's commitment to supporting the well-being and inclusivity of all that are in the council areas. Again, we know from research that when young people are exposed to the rainbow flag, they feel positive things, including having an attraction to certain areas of their towns or cities, feeling good about themselves, and having a desire to incorporate the symbolism that comes with the flag into their everyday life. Flying the flag also aligns with Moorabool's public health and wellbeing plan and ensure that LGBTIQA+ people are supported and able to be themselves within the community. And would also ensure that councillors meet their obligation to treat the municipal community with dignity, fairness and respect. Moreover, flying the rainbow flag may well bring money into the community by way of tourists. We know from research that LGBTIQA attracts substantial numbers of LGBTIQA+ tourists to rural and regional destinations. And this boosting tourism exercise assists local businesses with their COVID recovery. Moorabool also, you may not know,
You're breaking up there, Mr. Mulcahy.
Bush Ranger client, and he's the event to find the well-being businesses. This simple gesture is deeply meaningful consideration of it, and we will hope that you support the council CEO's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mulcahy. Are there any questions of Mr. Mulcahy?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Councillor Minari, you have a question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mulcahy, are you a Moorabool resident? Do you reside in the Shire?
May I respond, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, no, so the question was directed to you. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Minari, for that question. No, I'm not a Moorabool resident. I live just over the Shire's boundaries in Ballarat. I do use facilities in the Moorabool Shire and in Balan and Bacchus Marsh. I'm also supported by a number of local residents that have signed a joint letter to the CEO encouraging them and council in turn to support flying the rainbow flag.
Seen this letter?
I've got an email.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of Mr. Mulcahy? Thank you, Mr. Mulcahy. Thank you for your presentation or speaking to the item. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Councillors, we have a recommendation there.
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor Dudzik, is there a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Edwards. Is there any dissent? Councillor Minari? Councillor Dudzik?
This council report has come up in response to my previous motion, which was supporting flying of the rainbow flag by council. This is a policy that is consistent with other councils on significant days that local governments recognise. And I do believe that the policy meets the intent of my original request, which was in response to residents who lived locally who did request that I do something in respect to this area. I would also say that I was contacted by residents from a local CAFS organisation saying that they were part of a rainbow group within Bacchus Marsh and that they were very supportive of the flag being flown by Moorabool. And I was also told of students who go to Bacchus Marsh Secondary College who watched the previous council meeting and they were very keen to see Moorabool Council fly the rainbow flag. and it was of high interest to them. I believe this is a procedural matter which respects all people.
Thank you, Councillor Dudzik. Councillor Minari, you wish to speak against the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. As a councillor, every decision that I make in this room is delicately thought out and all Moorabool residents considered. After sitting through many meetings in my short time in council, I have witnessed the governance procedures that go hand in hand with council policies. One aspect of these procedures is community consultation. Community consultation has not been proposed in this policy. In regard to many communities that reside in the municipality, I have listened and I have absorbed their voices. After some thought, I strongly feel that we are denying the Moorabool residents their input into this discussion. I feel the residents of the Moorabool Shire deserve the respect and courtesy of their voice being heard. I am, however, happy that there looks to be an adoption of a flag flying policy connected to the Moorabool Shire Council. In past meetings, I've expressed my concern regarding the costs relating to report writing, internal costs, and understandably the cost itself of community consultation. So again, this being an explanation for the predicament I face with this decision tonight. With all things considered, I feel the Moorabool community's voice must hold precedence. So I am not convinced that this is the right recommendation for this policy. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Minari. Councillor Edwards, you wish to speak? Councillors, I would like to seek leave of council to speak to this matter, with your indulgence, please. I don't know if I should stand on. I'm not quite sure what we're doing today. Councillors, I wish to speak against the recommendation on tonight's business paper. We do need a flag policy, as we do not have one, but this is not the way to go about it. My opposition to the recommendation is that it delegates responsibility of the implementation to the CEO rather than the matter being dealt with in the normal manner of policy adoption, whereby council adopts a draft policy at a council meeting. It then goes out on public exhibition, consultation for maybe 4 to 6 weeks, which allows the community of Moorabool to have their say. After the public consultation period, the matter then comes back to council for final determination. The report that would come back to council would include comments from the community as part of that report. This, I believe, is the proper process of implementation of council policies. It is tried and tested, and one that we can stand behind and defend, as we have followed good process. We have copious documents which refer to community engagement and consultation, yet on this matter, if the recommendation were to be adopted, would deny 35,000 residents of Moorabool Shire the opportunity to have their say. Councillors, I would ask you all to consider, if this recommendation were to be adopted, what would be your response to residents if asked why a particular flag is flying at the council offices and the community had no say in the matter? It seems to me that a lot of the push for flying of flags at Moorabool offices is coming from outside of Moorabool Shire, yet this recommendation silences 35,000 residents of Moorabool Shire. Give Moorabool Shire residents a voice in this matter. Councillors, I believe we must follow good process, not convenience. Good processes do not guarantee good outcomes, but poor processes will never provide good outcomes. Councillors, I would ask you not to support this recommendation, as it does not follow good process of Moorabool Shire and would deny 35,000 people of this Shire not to have a voice in this matter. Thank you. Councillor Dudzik, I'll ask you to close the debate, please.
I think that this council report is an attempt to resolve the issues in a manner to make as many people as possible happy. By approving it today, it means that council could be able to fly the rainbow flag and this year in time for Ida Hobbit Day. If it was deferred to another meeting or a future meeting, we wouldn't be flying it this year in recognition of a day of significance for the LGBTIQ community. I do think these days it is a very common practice. I know there are residents in Moorabool Shire who do support this, and I commend this motion to council, and I would ask you to vote in favour of it.
Thank you, Councillor Dudley. Councillor Evans?
Question, if I may.
Yes, Councillor.
My question is to the CEO. So, Mr. CEO, if this recommendation was to go ahead, it doesn't guarantee any flag raising, from my understanding. Rather, it gives opportunity for groups within Moorabool or people within Moorabool to apply to yourself to fly a flag on certain days.
That's through you, Mr. Mayor. That is correct. There is an addendum to the document that it does identify certain events during the year where certain flags will be flown. So there is a schedule attached as well, but it also does give the community the ability to apply at other times during the year for different flags to be flown.
But attachment 3 indicates the annual flag schedule. That's part of the whole document.
Yeah,
It's not discretionary.
The attachment, but there is an addendum to that as well for other flags to be flown.
That's attachment 4.
Yeah.
Okay, councillors, I'll put that. All those in favour? The motion is lost. Thank you. Councillors, we have no community planning and economic development report. The next item is item 13.3, establishment of the Mattingly Park Advisory Committee. There is a recommendation. Mr. CEO, you wish to respond or lead council on this matter, or just no? Okay. There's a recommendation there, council, for your consideration.
Yeah, I'll move it, Mr. Mayor. I think it's us Moorabool moving forward.
Indeed, thank you. Councillor Evans moves. Is there a second for that, please? Councillor Minari. Are there any dissent? That all those in favour? Carried, thank you. The next item is item 13.2, establishment of the Bacchus Marsh Racecourse and Recreation Reserve Advisory Committee. Councillor.
Question.
Yes, Councillor.
Under what is suggested in this report,
Yes.
I don't think that Alan Comrie, who was part of this committee, would be eligible to be on this committee, and I'm pretty sure that he would be very keen to be a member of this committee. Is that an error in the report, or could that please be explained, or how would we change the recommendation to allow that?
I think we just need to sort of stay away from names in this particular matter. I mean, Mr. Comrie was the former chair and has done an outstanding job, but I think we're just not best if we don't sort of deal with it.
It doesn't allow for community members, and I think they have been allowed on committees previously.
CEO?
I'm not 100%. Can you just repeat the issue?
Sorry.
The governance.
Mr. Delia, please. Do you want to come forward, please, so we can hear you, please?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. The terms of reference provides for existing committee members to be appointed. In the case of Mr. Comrie, he resigned from the committee earlier in the year. So,
thank you for that. I think that sort of responds. Does that answer your question, Councillor Dudley?
I wasn't aware that he had resigned.
Okay. Well, Councillor, we have a recommendation there. Is someone prepared to move that, or maybe somebody moved it? I've moved on a bit. Mr. Delia?
sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, I made an error in that. It wasn't Mr. Comrie who had resigned. It was different person. Sorry. In relation to terms of reference, existing members and committee members can be appointed as long as they're existing.
Does it actually say that in this?
It says in the terms of reference.
Okay.
Yeah,
Councillor-
that's my question.
Councillor Evans.
So I was under the understanding that terms of reference allowed community members to be appointed.
Existing community members.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Does that answer councillor's question? Somebody prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Edwards, a second to Councillor Minari. Any dissent? I'll put that. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Next item of business, item 14.1, advisory committees of council reports. And there's one there from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting of the 9th of December, of which Councillor Dudzik is a representative. Somebody move the recommendation, please. Councillor
Happy to move.
Dudzik, is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Minari. Any dissent? I'll put that. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Item 14.2, delegated committees of council reports. There's the minutes of the Moorabool Growth Management Committee meeting of the 2nd of December of 2020. Somebody prepared to move that?
So move, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Edwards, Councillor.
Second.
Any dissent? I'll put that. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Item 15.1, draft asset management policy. So there's a recommendation there, councillor, in two parts. One of page 9. Councillor, do you have a
Question if I may, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Throughout the policy, there's no mention of safety. So I just want to question is, do we need to include safety in there, or is it inherent in other policies that would require to ensure that the safety aspects are considered?
Okay, Mr CEO, I'll defer to Mr Jeffrey. Mr Jeffrey, please.
Through you, Mr Mayor. I guess this is a high level document, so the safety aspect would be inherent in our normal activities, our maintenance activities that we undertake.
Would subsequent, so would that capture, so for example, when we consider a project and we consider whether the financial implications, do we consider what the safety implications are of doing a project?
Yes, our capital evaluation criteria has safety as one of the I guess when we're developing a project, whether it's a road renewal project or even a new project, safety is considered along with environmental considerations, disability and access considerations, a whole range of considerations we have in that mix during the design phase.
Thank you, Mr Jeffrey.
Does that answer your question, councillor?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor. We have a recommendation there. Somebody prepared to move the recommendation?
I'm happy to move it.
Dudzik, is a seconder, please. Councillor Minari. Is there any opposition? Oh, yes, you have opposition. Yes.
Opposition.
Yes. So councillor Dudzik, you wish to speak?
Considerable work has gone into our asset management policy by our staff, and I would commend it to council.
Okay, thank you, councillor Dudzik. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, certainly, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I'd like to point out that us setting policy is one of the most important things we do because it gives direction to officers, and that's what we should do at the strategic level. My concerns with this particular policy is that it really does concentrate heavily on financial aspects of these issues, right, with our infrastructure. There's not a lot in there. There's one statement in our context that actually talks about fit for purpose, yet it's not mentioned anywhere else in the document. And so, for example, if you have a look at the policy principles, 9 out of the 11 principles all relate to financial management. So it really is a heavy emphasis on financial responsibility, which is great. We want our officers to look at the fiscal viability of projects and make sure that we spend ratepayers' money wisely. That should always be one of our but just as important is fit for purpose. So over the journey, because of the direction we're given officers, quite often they'll come back to us and say, look, it came in over budget or under budget. However, we can deliver this project by reducing either its quality or quantity, or we might reduce the surface layer from 200 mil or from 300 mil to 200 mil. There's been many examples, and I think that's because our policy drives officers to consider financial considerations above everything else. And I think as a minimum, they should be equal. So what I would foreshadow an alternate motion, Mr Mayor, if this was to fail.
Yes.
And what I believe we should as council is provide fit for purpose with an equal standing with fiscal responsibility. I think those things are really important to our community. So there's nothing worse than if we deliver something with high expectations for the community and then they come back because we as council have made a decision to reduce the functionality of something because of costs. I think we have to consider that equally, and I don't think this policy will drive those outcomes. So I'd like to see us revisit that and actually strengthen those areas so that they're given equal consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Monaro, you wish to speak? Seconder of the motion. Okay, Councillor Dudzik, you wish to close the debate, please? Oh, unless, sorry, Councillor Ward, it's difficult when you're not in the room. You didn't wish to speak to this matter?
No, I'm still undecided on this matter. I'm listening to the debate.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dudzik?
This is something that I haven't heard previously from Councillor Edwards, although as...
Mayor, I did raise that at the Assembly of Councillors, which Councillor Dudzik was at.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, point.
Not as strong as that, I'm telling you.
Just respond to that.
Wouldn't it be better to defer the motion if your concerns are that great that you would actually want to argue against it? Wouldn't it be better to defer it and let the officers work on the document?
Have foreshadowed an album.
Okay. Well, we have a mover and a seconder of this, and we need to proceed, I think. Council, so having closed the debate, I'll put that, all those in favour of the motion recommendation?
Can we, how do the...
Well, basically what Councillor Edwards has done, if this motion were to fail, he's foreshadowing another motion. So he's given notice of that. So rather than be dealt with, if this motion were to fail, Councillor Edwards would put up.
I'd like to look at the option of, I'd like to change it. Can I?
We haven't seen the foreshadowed motion, so
yeah.
But obviously it's in line with what he's indicated in his response to the opposition. So I've not seen it, but I would suggest it's in line with that basically talking about fit for purpose and equal responsibility between the safety and the financial.
I'd be happy to look at that or defer it as well.
Well, we have a motion, so I'm in council's hands if they wish to have it deferred, but we need someone who's actually...
Move to defer the item, allow our officers a chance to discuss it with us.
Who've actually moved the recommendation, so, and Councillor Monaro is second.
I could read out what my motion is.
That might actually allay council's... Okay, Councillor, if you're indulgent, Councillor Edwards will advise us what his alternate recommendation would be.
Excuse me, the wording's not perfect, but the general intent was that council will defer the item and do additional work to refine the policy to ensure that it places equal emphasis on fit for purpose and fiscal responsibility.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I think that sort of makes it quite clear what the intent is. So I need now to, unless someone actually seconds a deferral motion, which we could sort of take precedent, or we just let this one proceed with this as is and let it rise and fall. And if it falls, Councillor Edwards has indicated quite clearly what is. So do you have a question, Councillor Ward, please?
I'll actually just second Councillor Edwards' motion to defer.
One step at a time, Councillor.
I recommend we do the vote on the original motion.
No, I was just going to say, councillors, we have a recommendation on the business page, which has been moved and seconded. We've clearly had debate on the matter. So I'll put that, all those in favour of the recommendation. Okay, it is lost. Now, Councillor Edwards, you have an alternate recommendation.
Mr Mayor, and
which you foreshadowed.
Yes, I foreshadowed. So it is that the council continues further work on the policy to refine the policy to ensure that it places equal emphasis on fit for purpose and fiscal responsibility.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Is everyone quite clear on Councillor Edwards' alternate motion? Okay, which has been moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Dudzik. Is there any dissent? I'll put that, all those in favour is carried. Thank you. Thank you.
I do apologise for not setting that earlier.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Yeah, word, that's the main thing. Next item of business, councillors, is item 15.2, draft management and maintenance of unmade paper roads policy. Again, there is a recommendation on that particular matter. So is somebody prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Edwards.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Edwards has moved. Is there a seconder for that, please? Can I have a seconder for that?
I'm happy to.
Councillor Dudzik. Is there any dissent? I'll put that, all those in favour. It's carried. Thank you. Next item of business is notice of rescission. This relates to Recreation Reserve Boundary River Bend Drive, Darley. Councillor Ward, you are the sponsor of this particular notice of motion. Do you wish to move it?
Yes, I do, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that?
Would the councillor like to introduce the item?
Well, that's a good point. Given that, do you wish to sort of speak a little bit, just a synopsis of what it's about, Councillor Ward?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, there's a huge area of land at Recreation Reserve at Riverbend Drive in Darley that's partially developed. I think there's an opportunity for council to, noting the potential of, well, the expected growth in population in Darley and in East Moorabool, for us to investigate the possibility of using that land to provide additional open space for passive and active recreation space. So my notice of motion is to request that the Chief Executive Officer prepare a report on Riverbend Drive Reserve, which considers considered opportunities to provide additional open space for passive and recreation. Based on request, I've outlined consideration be given in the report to improvements to the oval to convert to a medium-sized sporting oval with a hardwood cricket pitch, installation of a half-court basketball court similar to that as which has been installed in other open space reserves, irrigation system and landscaping, barbecue area and public toilets. And I provided the rationale, so I'm happy to put forward that notice of motion for your consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. It's been seconded by Councillor Edwards, and you've actually read out the motion anyway, so I think everyone's quite clear, even those that aren't in the gallery here tonight will have a good understanding of it. So is there any dissent to that motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Next item of business is the Mayor's report, which has been circulated. I just have one late matter, councillors, if I may, just to, well, not a report so much, just to, I've been advised when I came in the chamber that Mr Bart Ribbink passed away from Bland. I understand Mr Ribbink was a former councillor of the Shire of Bland. I think that's right. So undoubtedly, as councils, in line with council's policy, I'm assuming that council will sort of send some of their condolences to the family, which is what council has done. We're all, in other instances, where former councillors right across what is now Moorabool Shire passed away to pay their respects to their what they've done over the journey. So again, if somebody would just receive the Mayor's report, please. Councillor Edwards, seconder. Councillor Dudzik, all those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Councillor reports. I'll start on my left. Councillor Edwards, any councillor report?
Nothing to report, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Manari, anything to report?
Yes, I've got two things. I don't even know what day it is, but last week I attended the Moorabool Gardens for Wildlife, which was hosted by the Blackwood and Barry's Reef Land Care Group, and they had a speaker, Elspeth Swan, and it was very informative on encouraging landholders to create havens for wildlife habitats in their property. And I think Blackwood was a perfect destination to hold that information session. And a few weeks before, I attended the MAV media training session for 4 hours. Councillor Ward and I were put through our paces and tested, and that yeah, I got a lot out of that. That was great.
Thank you, Councillor Manari. Councillor Ward, do you have any councillor reports to?
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones, Mr Mayor. I've attended my first Western Highway Action Group meeting, which I found very interesting, and there's some very proactive and passionate councillors there working in a collaborative manner to try and make improvements for all municipalities that align the Western Highway. So that was very interesting, and I look forward to being involved in that group. And as Councillor Manari stated, I've attended several MAV and VLJ training courses that I found very beneficial, and the support given by state government at that level to new councillors is very beneficial.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Dudzik, anything to report, please?
I attended a meeting of the Bacchus Marsh Hall Committee, and they advised me that this year they weren't asked for a list of their capital improvements to go into the budget, whereas in previous years they were asked what was important to them and they were not consulted. They did raise that they were concerned about the area between the RSL and the public hall, and that they'd put it forward for the budget for several years, and that they wanted that area asphalted, and that there had been letters of support from all the different groups towards that. And they're a little bit surprised that they weren't consulted about that. And they're also concerned about the disability access to the public hall as well, which was another project that they're keen on. And they want to make sure those items are included.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. CEO, you wish to sort of respond to that, or?
This is the RSL, is it?
No, it's the Bacchus Marsh Public Hall, a committee of management.
The issue between the halls, we've been speaking with the RSL, so that item is an item that we've actually had conversations on as to what we would actually do on that particular area, but I'll have to follow up on the actual hall itself. But conversations have been had regarding capital works, but that area, we internally are having discussions on that as to what is the best way to deal with it. It hasn't been
ongoing.
About.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Anything else to report, Councillor Dudley?
I also attended a community meeting at the Darley Golf Course against the AusNet overhead power lines, which was very well run, and there's quite a number of residents concerned in the Darley and Comida areas, and meetings were held in both areas, and they wanted to make sure their voices were heard, that they wanted it underground.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Dudley. Somebody move the council reports be received, please. Councillor Edwards, Councillor Manari, put that lodged in favour. Carried, thank you. I'll just next item is urgent business. I'll just go around the Councillor Edwards. Any urgent business?
No urgent business, but a question, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Just in relation to Werribee Vale Road, at the last meeting, we're updated that it'd be very close to being finished by this meeting. Just, can we get an update on where that's at the moment, how long we expect it to be?
It's on the bid to be circulated to councillors, or we haven't. You want a response now, or?
Well, if the response is easy, Mr. Jeffries.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the works of, I guess all the difficult issues have been resolved. The retaining wall is now built. Curb was supposed to go through Pride East. I'm not sure that's happened, and once that's through, the pavement just needs to be finished off and asphalted. So definitely on the home stretch.
Yeah, good.
I'd say the next 2 to 3 weeks.
I must admit, it looks spectacular, the bit that's open. It's very impressive.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeffrey. I think it'll bring a lot of satisfaction to a lot of people once that happens, because it is looking great, I must admit. Any urgent business?
No urgent business.
No urgent business. Councillor Ward, any urgent business? Councillor Ward, any urgent business?
I think he's frozen.
Okay.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
No, Mr. Mayor, no.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ward. Councillor Dudley, any urgent business?
No urgent.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillors. We have no closed session of council. So the next item is to close the meeting. Councillors, I'll just close the meeting. Thank you very much for your participation, and officers through preparing the reports and getting the information to us in a very factual and timely